Okay, so last night's video did not record properly, so what we're going to do is do a little shorter version of that and go over some of the questions, but also a little bit of the presentation. To start with, I've got Dustin Johnson up here, and just give me just a second, and we'll start just where we did last night. So if you look at, there's the 4 points of resistance from the player, and you could have it more than that, but this is just the basics. I've been teaching the 4 points of resistance now. Oh gosh, I think I remember started teaching that in when I was in Nashville, maybe 20 years ago, where I really, believe that all 4 points should be have resistance at any point in the golf swing, not just the setup, which I see a lot of players that start to take lessons will start to try to root themselves into the ground in the setup, and but then they lose that root. That root is just when I say the word root, that means just the ability to have that resistance in any given direction. So when you swing back, when the player swings back to the top, if you were to push on him in any one of these directions, you would see that he would be able to resist that. Now, there's some players that don't look as firm as other players. Some players are a little too firm. Is it possible? Yeah, if your arms are too tense, that would be one of the ways. Sometimes too much knee flex and trying to overdo it, will overkill. But you definitely want to have resistance on all 4 points. So if anybody pushed you from behind or the sides or in front, you would be able to do that. So as he takes the club back here, we're going to do this in kind of slow motion. You can see that he rotates really well around his center, but any point here, he has resistance through the shot, even into the finish. So if you're pushing any of those points, you would see that he can resist that. It's pretty simple, but yet it's simple to talk about. I don't talk about it probably enough in the private part of the website. Probably add a few things over the winter because those are the times when you can start to develop this, better rooting of the body, a better, better quality of rotation, especially through the shot. Again, it's more popular in the setup. You'll hear it about it more in that than you will in the entire swing. But you should train so that you have your entire swing. Eventually, if you do enough kettlebell training and Tai Chi training, the revised versions of that for golf, you will naturally start to increase that ability to resist all 4 points. So the second part that we talked about was ball position. Ball position, we like the ball position. If I would take the left side of the face here, and that's just kind of guesstimate, you can see it's right there. With a driver, we like that to be off the left armpit, 3-wood left armpit. Long irons, again, it's left side of the face. In between, there's some wiggle room, and with every player, there's really there really is there's wiggle room with this. There's some player a little bit more back, or some play more forward. You just kind of have to find what works for you. And if you were on the webinar last night, you heard my philosophy about basic fundamentals. That won't go into it near as much as I went into it last night, but just long story, a lot shorter, is that I don't have a lot of faith in just basic fundamentals. I don't. That's why you don't. If somebody, I get emails all the time like, hey, why don't you talk enough? Why don't you talk about the grip? Why don't you talk about the alignment, this and that more, and hand position, and this position, and that position? It was like, that's the reason why I think so many people enjoy our program is because we don't do that. Is because we look at basic fundamentals are something that I believe happens after the fact, after a player has found their timing, which is basically they found that relationship of the sweet spot to the ball through contact, usually around chipping and pitching, as we talk about. And usually this happens for the better players. It happens at a younger age, or early. I shouldn't say at younger age. It happens earlier in their kind of their golfing journey. They figure out that's really important, like applying their sweet spot against the back of the ball. And they realize, wait a minute, if I can use the sole of the club along with the sweet spot and have good turf interaction with the sole of the club going through the shot, and I've got that ball stuck on that face. The next thing you know, now I've got good turf interaction and I've got a good compression on the ball. And the next thing you know, well, what if I start this ball on a little bit better line? You know, the initial start line of the ball, as we found out, I don't think we found out, it's been going on forever. You start that ball on the right line where you're trying to go, odds go up you're going to play better golf. Then they figure out, wait a minute, well, what if I get the trajectory correct? And that's really the last thing. And it's because those are things that's going to affect ball control. And they're like, okay, well, if I can make it come out of this area, this kind of launch produces this kind of shot, vice versa, whatever it may be. That's really kind of how a natural, I would say, if you want to talk about a natural process of like a player that has made it, whether they have had instruction or not had instruction, they go down that road. So it's not like they go, okay, we're going to, build this golf swing, and then we're going to build time. That'll take care of timing. Let me tell you, they can play. You can play some of that cat and mouse game, but what I see more of is players that try to build their golf swing, this golf swing that's beautiful and wide and whatever it may be, and sequenced up and all this stuff, but they don't understand how to do the little things that I talked about earlier, which is applying the sweet spot against the back of the ball, applying the solo club against the ball on the turf correctly, getting the ball to start on the right line just in short swings, and then getting the trajectory. And so I believe going back to basics is if we can do those things that I just talked about as a player first, then you start to see players build these individual basic fundamentals, because basic fundamentals, all you got to do is turn your TV on and observe for yourself. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to listen to anybody else that teaches the game. Observe for yourself, and you tell me how many grips on the tour are exactly the same, how many takeaways on the tour are exactly the same, how many setups are exactly the same, even the postures, how many are the same. You really name it, the alignments, just anywhere you want to go. With that, it's going to be different, and that's why I talk about it in this program, where I believe it's so important, is you have to find your way as a player into that success circle, and there's so many ways to make it, and there's so many ways to fail. It's been proven. There's more ways to fail, as we've seen in golf. There's more ways to screw up, and this really only applies to golfers that truly care. I don't ever talk about the golfers that don't get better, that don't want to get better. I mean, why would we talk about that? But there's so many golfers, like everybody we work with, and I believe everybody in other academies or whatever they're doing, their journey is. I really believe that they're, obviously they love the game, they want to get better, and most don't. We know that there's more ways to fail than to succeed, and that's what we try to help players do, is understand the road that these players are taking, these journeys that they are taking, where they all end up in the same category, which is fulfilling their goals, becoming the type of player that they believe that they're capable of being on a consistent basis. It doesn't matter what type of personality you have. It doesn't matter if you're a good person, if you're a bad person, if you're a mean person, if you're a compassionate person. Personality means nothing on this. It's the journey that you take, and that's the best way I can describe it. If you're on the route and you're trying to get better, which we see, and the most common thing is where golfers try to take kind of the scientific route. They go and study all these styles and systems and whatnot, and they learn about all these things. They sound cool, so cool at first, and when they go start to apply them, they realize it's just like the last one. It works a little while and it fails. It works a little while and it fails. Whether you're, a Jimmy Ballard type golfer, if you're a Stack and Tilt, or whoever you want to be, or whatever, it doesn't really matter. They all tend to, when you're going down that road, they'll start to fade away, because the players are trying to, they're trying to being so technical that they forget about playing, and their goals, or their priorities and their values of their game aren't set in the right areas, right? You start valuing your golf swing and the way you swing the club more than score, and you'll get that. You'll typically end up with a better golf swing and a higher score. It happens all the time. So you have to understand how to blend techniques in, like we talked about last night. You have to, I believe in technique. Yeah, there's are techniques that are on the site, absolutely, they wouldn't be on there. And that's one of the things is I've had a lot of years of experience of cross training. Um, some of you know my background, some of you don't, but I literally have been studying, golf instruction books, the best things that have been out there, to my knowledge, and then chasing down the best instructors. I started studying. I had Ben Hogan's book memorized when I was 7. Going all the way through to chasing down the so-called best instructors in the world in my career, and then chasing down the best fitness, the best biomechanist, and all these different people I thought were, really going to enhance my skills, which they did. But also learning that a lot of the failures that were in their models as well, and taking those out and really dialing it in to saying, okay, here really what is most important. Like, let's get away from all this junk and let's get down to the simple stuff. And the simple stuff is the most effective, and that's why you see on our website, when we talk about the downswing and delivering the club into the ball and through the ball, how important those are for players to develop, and then also being able to turn the training part off, and turn the playing part on, and becoming a gamer and becoming a player versus this player that that can do our model perfectly. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for somebody that can go out and say, look, I do exactly what you're talking about. Well, that's great. What's your score? What are you shooting? Are you reaching your goals? There's a lot of ways to reach these things, and even with our stuff, there's when you get into the essentials, you won't see much difference. But even with what we talk about in a lot of things, there's going to be players that don't do it exactly like we talk about, and it doesn't bother me at all because I understand that that's part of their journey. They figured it out, and so I know I kind of go on and on and on about that. But if I know that there's a lot of players on here that are listening to what I'm having to say about that, but there's probably some players that probably don't understand that. And if you can tap into understanding that part, what I'm trying to do here, what our goal, what my mission is, and the mission of this online program, it's not about making your golf swing better. That's a very small portion of this program. It's about making you better as a player, and consistent day in and day out, and taking the roadmap or using the same roadmap that all these players that have become successful in the game over the years have done, and they all really go down the same road. And we're working on a project right now that proves that. It's probably going to take a couple of years before it's complete, but it's really it's I'm very excited about where that's going to be going. And I'll let you know more about what that project is. It's basically about players that have unique golf swings that have figured out how to play great. Unique being strange, ugly for a lot of people would consider it. These players that I'm talking about aren't, the best athletes and so forth, but they found a way, and they all end up in the same position, which is what everybody on here is for, which is to play their best golf and reach their talent. And these players that I'm talking about have passed their talent levels. I think I've told the story, and I'll tell it again. One of my good friends back, where I'm from in Arkansas, never took lessons from him, never needed to, really. Started out just like everybody, in the high 90s and the hundreds when he started playing golf, and he kept competing and playing money games, and anything and everything that get that game built up to where he thought he could be. He had this big over the top move. Never had a lot of power. Casted the club, didn't have a lot of lag, flipped it through impact, and he won the club championship, I think now 3 or 4 times, something like that. He won all kinds of different amateur events. Just, does things that you're not going to hear me talk about them on here, but you will certainly hear me talk about those kind of players that have made it, and that have really style or whatever, that people look at their games and go, oh, I don't understand. How can they make it? And that's the individual. Don't ever doubt the individual. So, and don't doubt yourself either if you're really serious about making this making your game all the way to the highest level of your talent, I should say. So We talked about ball position. We talked about the body parts. Grip security. It's hard to show on this. I'll show that a little bit more on the follow-up video. But it's just like last night I talked about. It's like if you look at this player, Dustin Johnson, you can see it's like he's got big hands. But that doesn't really mean anything relative to what I'm talking about. But it would be harder for him to have a grip that looked more connected. But if you look, he's got a really connected grip. Like it looks like if you looked at an amateur here and watched the grip, you would see the right hand is below the left hand further. It's more of a split, if you will. And usually the right hand's either wrapped over the top of the grip, which is in the worst striking position you can be in, or it's wrapped under the grip, or it's just not fitted where the lifeline is truly secured into the left thumb or lead thumb, depending on if you're righty or lefty. So grip security. You want to feel like your grip is welded together and works together. You never hear, I don't think any player in the history of the game would debate that. All right, we'll move forward from that. And I'll demonstrate that again more in the follow-up video. The grip alignment point, we get a lot of questions on that. The grip alignment point is going to be as you're finishing through the shot. That's the timing contact point, as you would see here. It's really where the face meets the ball. Different angles here. You obviously you want the shaft a little bit, or the shaft and the hands a little bit in front of the ball when you make original contact. But it's not just that. Where a lot of people make mistakes is they just try to make that movement and they don't make a golf swing. You have to make your golf swing, and that has to be a part of it. It can't be just move the shaft forward and you play good golf. It won't work. It's been tried for many years and it just doesn't work. You've got to be able to do that kind of in the automatic mode where you just make a golf swing, you make it turn back and you turn it through. And if you were to draw it all back, you would have that. So that's the timing contact point. And the next frame, as we talked about, is the grip alignment point. Now, the frame rate wasn't high enough to really dial that in, but we could dial the frame back where the lead hip joint is here. That would be your grip alignment point. So that frame would be, the club face would be square, would be back here. The lead arm, wrist, and everything would be in a straight line up through the lead leg here. And that just means that you've made the timing contact point, you've maintained that with your pivot through the grip alignment point, and he does a great job, as we talked about in the last webinar, of maintaining the shaft inside his left arm through relative to the face here. We talked about that in the last webinar and the follow-up. You don't see all the pros do that, but I can tell you they would all, they all would, if they had their choice to keep their ball flight, they'd certainly do it. But it keeps the ball a little bit more ball control when you see that type of movement. And there's some wiggle. There's not a lot. There's some wiggle room in between that. But that's just a really good job of maintaining those alignments in the shot. It's not held on like we talked about. Held on would be like if you go back to the grip alignment point. We'll dial that back here. So if we put it here. So held on would be if you could picture the club head is right here, and so if his hands were here in a straight alignment, that would mean he had held that on too long. It's obviously he does not. He's giving some of that up, getting back to that lead arm, not giving it the handle back up towards the right arm, which is what all the amateurs do. So, and it's just important to know you don't want to feel like you're holding on to the shot, and you don't want to feel like you're flipping it through the shot. There's just like hitting kind of like a 20 or 30 foot putt through there. It's your hands are working together, and there is no hold off or flip. And I think we talked a lot about that in the last video. So we talked about last night that when we're in this area, this lead arm, being the grip through the grip alignment point, all that would be a straight arm, the lead arm, and then from the down the line view, you would see. If I can find it. Dusting down the line. Give me just a second, I'll have it popped up. So down the line, you saw the face on. Down the line, we like that. we like that right shoulder we always talk about on plane. That's a bad line. Again. You can see on plane with the right shoulder plane with the ball. We love that. That helps stabilize that face where you don't see a lot of rotation here. Most amateurs here would have a lot more, kind of curvature, if you will. The face is trying to turn to the left too much through there. So that helps with it. Does it make it perfect? Not really. But it definitely helps with it. And that's why we talk about that right shoulder. And so if we can get the right shoulder to work under, and it always continues to move as we talk about, and the lead arm to get in line with the lead differential for the grip alignment point, and there's no breakdown, and we're continuing to move through the shot, good things are definitely going to happen. So, a couple of the questions that we had last night. Let's go back face on. Right shoulder, basically the tilt versus the covering, attacking the right shoulder basically versus kind of like what happens, how do you attack with the right shoulder low through the shot without tilting away? And they're just two different things. You got to realize that they're just two different things. So if I put that line there, you'll see that he doesn't go away from that line, he goes forward. That's really all it is. If he was to tilt his shoulder back and drop his spine this way, what would happen is that right shoulder would be behind this line here. So as simple as I can make it. So if you tilt your spine and bend your side bend to the right, what we call it, too much lateral bend to the right this way, shoulder will drop and tuck, and you could have it on plane with the ball, but again, it would be behind instead of covering, like you can see what he's doing here. So it's very important. No, that's really it as far as simplicity. Just remember when we talked a little bit about last night as we're coming through the shot, is the shoulder is just it's not necessarily an isolated move. It's just everything's got to be working in through that law of the circle. So it's think of frames when you're making your downswing. That's why we do deceleration training. Is we like to think of the swings and frames. So it's working. You can see through a circle and it's constantly moving. But it's not like a snap like this. So if you're trying to snap through, you want to feel like you're working smoothly and slower, like more of a torque swing, a torqued up golf swing versus a snapping, whipping swing. So Justin Johnson's versus kind of like an all-out Tiger Woods or even a Roy McIlroy have some of that snap in their swing. We like that softness, the continued circle and the contained torque. And you can hit it long both ways, and you can play good golf both ways. It's just the amateur, the more they snap, the more they tend to flip the hands through the shot and tend to get injured in the lower part of the spine and even the knee potentially, depending on how the knee is potentially snapping through the shot. Exiting the shot, I'll follow that up in the follow-up video. The lead knee, one of the questions was about how do I clear the lead knee and get out of the way and all that stuff. But you can see, like, really great players don't really think about their lead knee, even though you might see it like, a lot of players remember looking at Ben Hogan and seeing his knee do different things, or Sam Snead, but it could be this generation where you're seeing their knee do this and that. But you got to remember, it's just a part of the big picture. None of these players really think about their lead knee. They're thinking about basically turning back in the backswing and turning through the shot, and having everything that's basically having no blocks in their swing, chi blocks, which means that the energy wouldn't get locked up or snap or whatever it is. They're just trying to feel coordinated on both sides of the movement. If the knee was a part of that movement and it was snapping, if you could picture as he's going through the shot, it's snapping back this way and extending, and it was throwing off his hands at impact, we might have something to talk about. But you don't really want to think of the knee as a part that's going to clear your body or anything like that. I mean, I think it's a part of that circle, that law of that circle we talk about, but it's like not the only thing. And it just got to look at it. And there's so many different positions that the knee could be in. Like this is Dustin Johnson, but every knee position through impact is different for every player. There's some that have the same kind of common denominator, but knee's not what's going to make you a great player. But it can hurt you if you are snapping it, locking it, driving it back, or ripping it too far forward. You just deal with it. If it looks like it's way out of line, then yeah, start easing into it and correcting it, especially if it's extending and snapping too early, because you might be playing better golf, but eventually it will get to your back by doing that. So the thing about the weak knee is just you got to remember a lot of these isolated issues that we talk about, they're individually based. And if you're playing really good golf, if you're playing bad golf, it's easy to try to macro correct everything. You look at the knee, you correct that. You look at the shoulder, you correct that. You do all these things, and you finally realize you do 100 of those things, and you're still not playing better golf because you're not really dealing with the meat and potatoes of the techniques. And then also, like we talked about earlier, it could be that you're not dealing with the playing aspects and the mental aspects and the fitness aspects to get you to where you're unlocking your ball striking potential. And they do. I mean, there's no doubt the mental things that we have on our website and the kettlebell training, they will unlock your ball striking. I don't care if you're Tiger Woods listening to this or if you're Mr. Smith at 70. It doesn't matter to me. It will help you. And if it helps you and it unlocks those things and lets you play better, you need to. I would certainly be in. I would get after it. What I'll see typically, and I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, but we'll see players that go out and and I don't mean this in a bad way, but they'll go out and hit 10 buckets of range balls every single day, and they burn out. They end up usually quitting the game over a certain period of time because they realize they're not going to get better that way. They think they just don't have it when it's just the wrong road you're going down. You'd be much better off to, you think working hard is hitting 10 bags of balls one day. Go spend 30, 45 minutes in one of our workouts and see with a kettlebell and see what you think about how hard you're working at the range. The kettlebell you will feel the work, but it's also you'll benefit from that work. And especially if you're doing our techniques, everybody's doing our swing techniques, so I know I don't have to ever tell anybody not to do that. It's just that they don't. If you're taking the revised Tai Chi patterns and the kettlebell training and putting 2 or 3 days of work of that into these the drills that we teach, that's when you're going to see your game start to explode. It's the same with everybody. I've never had anybody that was ever doing our techniques, our swing techniques, and doing the revised Tai Chi and the revised kettlebell training for golf that did not get better instantly, much less ever get worse. So what I have seen people do, even with our training, with anybody's training, and anybody would say different would be lying, which is go out and work on a technique that even could be right, could be wrong, I don't know, but overdoing it, hit too many golf balls, not playing enough golf, trying to do all these drills, and next thing you know, they can't beat the way out of a wet paper sack. That's more common than the average Joe would ever think. I can assure you that. So the last one was standing, how far to stand from the ball, and we talked about that last night with Jim Furyk, and I will show you this. There's a lot of different ways. Jim Furyk stands closer to the ball, you can see here, really, than any other player on the tour. Gary Woodland's really close. It's just a way, again, I'll go back, I'll answer exactly like I did last night. Jim Furyk, played junior golf, and one of the first things that he figured out on his own was to apply the sweet spot against the back of the ball. Then the second thing was if he applied the sole of the club against the back of the ball or against the turf, and he had the sweet spot going against the back of the ball, it worked out even better. Then he realized if he could start the ball on a really start line to start the golf ball off, where he's playing a fade draw or straight, hits it better. Then he realized wow, if I can get this certain trajectory, that fits my eye and my game, and that's going to give me optimal. That's going to give me an optimal trajectory for my ball striking, and boom, that falls into place. I believe that these players, I know they do, not all of them, but mass majority of them, they find their timing first and then build their swing second. He's the perfect example because he's one that you can tell he did not build golf swing first, then timing second. He built timing first and allowed a swing to just become whatever it is. If he could have had a beautiful golf swing, I think he still does have a beautiful golf swing, but he could have had more a traditional golf swing. But if let's just say he goes off golf swing first and he never built his timing, we wouldn't be even talking about it. And that's kind of my whole point of really about every week when we do the webinars. But I believe what I mean by that is he found a way by him being closer to the ball. That was the way he could do those things I was talking about. Mo Norman, on the other hand, if you don't know who it is, you can Google him. He's not alive anymore. He was one of the greatest ball strikers of all time. He stood way away from it, totally opposite. But these two they're both phenomenal ball strikers. There's a lot of variance. You'll have players that Mo Norman was like his hands would have been like way out here, and the ball would have been like way out there. His hands are really high, so it's very different. And then you'll have all kinds of different in betweens. You'll have some here, you'll have some here, you'll have some even lower. Just kind of all over the board because they found out that worked really well for them, and a lot of it's kind of subconscious. Like they just figure out, like if I get my hands here, I feel like I get a better hit on the ball. If I get my hands up and over here, I get a better hit on the ball like I'm trying to go for. So that's the best way I can explain it. It's just a lot of different ways. It's very similar to what I was saying with I consider that part of the basic fundamentals, how far you're away from the ball. There's so many different ways, and I think when guys say, okay, if you hit it better and you're closer to it, stay there. If you hit it better and you're further away from it, stay there. But regardless to any of that, you still have to build that timing that we constantly talk about. You have to increase timing and to improve your game and to get to where you're trying to go. And that's what this is all about. Just remember to use the entire program when you're on the website. Don't get caught up into using video like a kind of maniac every day and trying to be perfect and all that stuff. Just make sure if you can play golf every day, play golf every day. If all you have time for is once a week or once every other week, play that, because it will increase. It will get you better and better and better. And then you just try to chip away at your technique. And, you have to identify where you're at, and I'll help you with that as well. But you have to look at the video and say, yeah, I do that. I make whatever move it is that I make. Then you have to tap into that when you swing. When you go live swing, you really need to tap into, like, what is that downswing move that I need to start to correct? Or transition move, I shouldn't say just downswing. Transitional to downswing move, or through impact. What's that? So what's that feel? And then you just start working opposite of that to correct it. And that will start to get you in line. And then, the short game training that we talk about, the short swing training, I should say, where you're building those short zones and you're getting those automatic hands to where when you start to unleash on it with full speed, there's no manipulation. It's right in front of you and you're ready to go. But your best golf will, like I've said in one of the 2 or 3 of the videos, your best golf is going to be when you just turn back and turn through the shot, and you look up and you know you didn't flip your hands through the shot, but you're going out and trying to say, okay, I'm going to make a swing and not use my hands in the shot. I'm going to turn back and not use my hands for impact. That won't work. You might try to, I'm not saying you should go out and just try to flip it. I'm just saying that you're trying to do all this training to build your hands to where they become automatic for you. It's not like you're trying to regulate your hands. They just you hit a shot and you realize, wait a minute, I didn't use my hands. That's great. And once you do that, kind of get out of your own way. Don't be your own worst enemy. Once you get on a run, continue to play golf is the best advice I can give you, and let go. Don't try to go in and take 10,000 notes and all that. You might document it in your journal and say, hey, I played great today. It's what I didn't feel my hands flipping at all, and blah blah blah. And if you have a good journal of the weeks up, you'll see that there'll be a lot of short game training and playing. A lot of the things, or maybe kettlebells or whatever it was, and you can see there's going to be a pattern building you up to that peak, just like it would be a pro. And then once you get your confidence, you feed off of that confidence. And it's just like you see with Jason Day right now, coming into the Tour Championship. It's like, Jason Day, the swing doesn't look any different than it did whenever he wasn't winning, or at the top and dominating or whatever, or his putting stroke looked any different. It's accumulation of confidence and playing and seeing it, and then all of a sudden he went through all of a sudden it peaks, and a lot of failures he starts to peak and overcome, and then next thing you see somebody that's just dominating every time they put the peg in the ground. And it's the same process whether you're an 85 shooter trying to get to 80 or 85 to 75 or 75 to a club champion or whatever, from 90 to a club champion, whatever. That's the process, Just you don't Jason Day, if it was about some of the failures, he could have went and he could have been changing his golf swing when he wasn't playing his best golf. He could have went and done this, that, changed coaches and all that. He didn't. He just stayed on course and he kept doing what he does, and he knew that eventually this will break through. And just like David Duval back in the day, everybody knew when David Duval won for the first time. Went through so many times where he was so close and just what, but he was kept knocking on the door. And once he knocked on the door, I think he won like 4 times in October, like literally every weekend. Just next thing you know, he had a major and had this phenomenal career and all this. But it was like a lot of failures in between. You have to be able to not try to change the whole everything that you do when you're not playing your best golf. You just got to realize that you're going to get it, and you just learn from your mistakes and chip away at your game, at your techniques, and try to be a better player mentally than you are physically, and you will be you'll reach your goals. So anyway, feel free to shoot me any questions if you have any. Thank you.